Welcome, everyone. I'm Susie Wampler, Regional Coordinator for JASNA Southwest here in Southern California. Please let us know where you are tuning in from in that chat box, please. We're very happy to have you here as we reveal the winners of our 2020 Young Filmmakers Contest. It was quite a spectacular year, and we're happy to be able to celebrate this occasion with you and have you with us. The contest is designed to introduce new audiences to Jane Austen, to bolster JASNA's mission of helping people, spread the word of Jane Austen's work and life, her genius, and to inspire new generations and new creativity, and bring diverse audiences to explore Austen. We know so many people have come to Austen through film, and it's just a great way to introduce people to her novels. The contest originated when JASNA Southwest hosted the AGM, the annual general meeting for JASNA at Huntington Beach in 2017. At that AGM, we screened our very first winner, Rivka Pinarelli's very moving documentary, An Accomplished Woman, about her struggles with severe dyslexia and how Pride and Prejudice changed her life when she learned to read and to love to read because of Jane Austen. The following year, at our December meeting at Sony Pictures Studios, Ellen Carden, the winner of our 2018 contest, had her film premiere there, Mrs. Bennet's Plan, about a mother of 5 unmarried daughters who was very interested in matchmaking. So we had a whole spectrum from documentary to animation to comedy and modernization. There's a whole range of things that we've explored in our Young Filmmakers Contest. As I said earlier, film and television adaptations have really had a long tradition of bringing new fans to Austen. And if you first learned about Austen or became really interested in her because of a film adaptation or miniseries, let us know in the chat box. And adding significance to last year's contest was the fact that 2020 marked the 25th anniversary of several landmark films that brought a lot of people to Austen. The 1995 Colin Firth, Jennifer Ely, Andrew Davis penned script of Pride and Prejudice, the miniseries, Emma Thompson and Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility, Persuasion with Amanda Root and Kieran Hines, and also Clueless, the modernization of Emma with Alicia Silverstone and Paul Rudd. And actually last year also was the 80th anniversary of the Laurence Olivier and Greer Garson Pride and Prejudice, the 15th anniversary of the Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden version, and the 40th anniversary of the 1980 miniseries with Elizabeth Garvey and David Rentoul. So it was really a landmark year last year, and it was very fitting that it happened to be the very best year we've had for our contest. It was definitely the most successful to date, and we're just thrilled to share with you the premiere of our 6 winning entries. But before we begin the screening, we want to make sure that you can all hear and see everything, because Zoom, has its issues. We're doing our best with that, but we want to show you a portion of the 2020 Young Filmmakers trailer to test to see if you're having any difficulty. Because during the actual screening, we're going to shut off the chat function, so you won't be able to tell us if you're having any issues. So now Erica Kotyke, the chair of this year's contest, will walk you through some of the settings to help optimize your viewing while I set up the screen sharing. So again, if you have any difficulties hearing or viewing, let us know in the chat box. And we'll start this.
Hi, everybody. The chat box is going to be gone, but for now it's still there. And I'm sorry for those dings if you're hearing that, I apologize. The best thing to do is to go full screen, and then on the top of your screen, you're going to see a bar that says View Options. What you want to do is hide the video panel under that, and then Susie will go away. Whether or not you want to do that, you can still keep that little box there, but if you want, full cinematic experience, just go ahead and hide the video panel. And let's all watch part of this trailer, and then we'll have time in the chat area to see if anybody has any problems.
Okay, here we go.
So my first introduction to Jane Austen was through the movies.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that any woman with 5 grown daughters has one main purpose in life: to get them married.
And I think that for me, it was the first time that a movie has actually made me want to read the book.
I am Jane Austen, and this is my story.
Hello, I'm Jane Austen. I'm a novelist, and this is my wardrobe.
And I found Pride and Prejudice in my cousin's room. Just opened it up and I just started reading, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of words in there that I didn't read correctly, and I'm pretty sure that I pronounced a lot of the names incorrectly in my head as I was reading it, but there was something about it that just captured my imagination, and just, it made me not care. It made me not care that I couldn't read right.
Okay. So did anybody have any issues? Let's see. Can everybody hear? You can unmute yourself to tell us if you did have a problem. Everybody good? All right. That's fantastic. Okay. So, all right. So we're going to start the screening in just a couple of minutes, but I want to give a shout out first to our judges. We had an outstanding panel of judges this year. Actor, producer, writer Ashley Clements, who starred in the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. We had novelist Lori Vieira Rigler, who authored Confessions of a Jane Austen Addict, among many other titles. Thomas Rigler, an Emmy Award-winning director and executive producer. Director, screenwriter Robin Swipord, who wrote and directed the Jane Austen Book Club, among many other titles. Kenneth Turan, the longtime film critic for the Los Angeles Times. And Adrielle Walden, creator of the Webby-nominated Black Girl in a Big Dress series, who's also worked behind the scenes on such films as How to Train Your Dragon and many others. She's a writer, producer, actor, and I know she's here today. I saw her in the coming in. And some of our other judges will be here as well today. For 2020, we expanded the contest beyond high school, college, and graduate school, and opened up entries to any amateur filmmakers in North America under the age of 30. And we'll continue that again with this year's contest. Winners receive cash prizes, a year's membership in JASNA, the chance to screen their films for audiences like you, people around the world, and also to have their work critiqued by some major film critics and filmmakers. So we're grateful also to the many donors who helped make this event possible and helped underwrite the contest. It really makes all the difference in the world. And I really want to thank Erica, who worked tirelessly as chair of this year's Young Filmmakers Contest. Right after the screenings, Erica will do a moderated Q&A with the judges and winners, and then we'll take questions from all of you. At the end of today's event, we'll screen the 2020 trailer, and we'll need your help promoting the contest this year, and the deadline is October 1st. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But again, remember that during the event, we're going to turn off chat, but be ready to enter your questions in the chat box after the last film ends. And now, as I turn back on the take off chat and adjust other settings, Erica's going to introduce our the first film you'll see.
Okay, great. What you're going to see is we are going to premiere our third place winners first, starting with the over 20 age category and then following with the under 20. And the same will happen with the second place and then finally the first place. And at the end of the 6 winning films, I will introduce all of the winners, their names, and the titles of their films.
Right.
So now sit back and I think you're going to really enjoy these. So enjoy and sit back and relax.
Again, don't forget hide video panel in the upper right with the dots, if you would say. And here we go.
My dearest Cassandra. Today I was awoken by the sound of something pounding on my bedroom window. I was immediately frightened at the thought that it could be someone attempting to break inside my house. My hand timidly pushed back the blinds, and my eyes were met with hail dancing down the roof. You will not be surprised to hear that I stayed up for the remainder of that night. Writing, of course. Let other pens dwell on guilt and misery. For I have a novel to write. When morning hit, the garden was left misty by last night's storm. There were water droplets on the blades of grass that drew me in like they were a fortune teller's crystal ball. The flowers were unbattered by the storm, still beautiful as ever. I could almost picture it. The Honorable Mr. Darcy. The clever Miss Elizabeth Bennet. But Darcy couldn't console the fire raging in his heart. Elizabeth's quick judgment proclaimed him as a pompous man. And so, much to Elizabeth's mother's dismay, Darcy left. Elizabeth Bennet and I see eye to eye on a lot of things. Marry for love or not at all. Yours affectionately, Jane. P.S. There is one more thing. Darcy and Elizabeth find love, of course.
If you keep looking for him like that, he'll never show up. I don't know what you mean. Oh, please. You're looking for your darling, Charlie. I see the way you two talk in class. Be happy for me, Liz. I think he really likes me. Oh, here we go.
Jane, Liz, you look beautiful.
Thank you, Charlie. You look great as well. William, I never thought that you would show up to something like this. We assumed you were too cool for such silly affairs.
Charlie dragged me along. I assume Jane did the same to you?
Jane, would you like to dance?
I would love to.
It would be such a waste of this tux if I didn't dance in it. Right, Elizabeth?
It's Liz, and I suppose you're right, Will.
Would you like to... What was that, Liz? It sounded like you were about to ask me something.
I was about to ask you to dance, so we don't stand here looking like fools, but I know you'll say no.
And What if I don't?
I will admit, but I will say I talk a little more and a little bit about silly little secrets and high school crushes, but it felt like something bigger every time they say, oh, it's the silly things we do for love, but I never did anything to deserve all this. And
I like this song.
It's so invigorating.
It's your turn to say something. Isn't that how these things work?
Okay. What would you like me to say?
I don't know. This conversation seems fitting enough.
Are you always this chatty?
Are you always this insufferable?
Unfortunately.
Dearest Jane, I'm not an eloquent writer. I haven't lived a mysterious life which scholars are still attempting to dissect centuries later. I've not published novels that inspire films, plays, and numerous other books with narratives remaining as true today as when they were written. I may never breathe life into strong characters who seem unattainable, but nonetheless adored and idolized by millions. I may never find a love that makes me weak in the knees and ignites passion without a single touch, but I do know this. I will make blunders, laugh richly, speak out of turn, dance the night away, make acquaintances, gossip, blindly trust, lose family, walk miles, cause rifts, be judged, cry thousands of tears, read a great many books, and let my imagination run wild because after all, I'm human, just like you. So thank you, Jane, for reminding me through words that resonate in past, present, and future that I was meant to experience everything.
Hi, I'm Emily, and my life is a Jane Austen novel. Emma, to be exact. Let me break it down. Okay, so basically we started reading this book Emma in AP Lit a couple weeks ago, and since then, everything that happens to Emma happens to me. Like, my friend Holly recently texted me that this kid Marty, who's a tad vacuous, fully slid into her DMs. So I told her she had to go for this guy Elliot, who seemed like he was into her and wasn't, vapid, no offense. Then, 2 hours later, I sit down with a little chamomile and an electrical blanket, and I read in the book that Emma's friend Harriet likes this guy Mr. Martin, but guess what? He's societally beneath her, so Emma says Holly should go for Mr. Elton, who's better off and seems to like her. So now I'm thinking, ugh, God, it's Nick. He's my friend, maybe. I think Nick is Mr. Knightley, who's sort of at odds with Emma, but sort of, I don't know how to describe it.
Yo, what's up?
Ugh, Nick, what is it?
God, nothing, bro. Can you chill? I just wanted to talk to you. You get so tense.
Sorry. How are you?
You know what? It's fine. I'll call some other time.
God, Nick can be so annoying sometimes. Sorry about that. Anyways, so now I'm thinking, oh my God, this is exactly what just happened to me. And it would just be serendipitous, except the next day I get a text from none other than Elliot, who's asking me out, and I'm all like, I was trying to set him up with Holly. This is so awkward. And sure enough, the next chapter turns out that Mr. Elton wasn't into Harriet. He was just trying to get close with, you guessed it, Emma. So that's pretty much where I am now. I'm trying to pace myself though, and I swear I'm not some wacko. I'm actually really down to earth. At least that's what my shrink tells me. Her name's Greta, like Greta Gerwig. Ugh, she's such a peach.
Hey honey, oh, what is this?
I got it from that little boutique that sells sustainable clothing made out of rubble from Taiwan.
Yeah, it's cute, but remember I told you we're a little strapped right now ever since Kerfluffle went under?
Kerfluffle was my dad's pillow fluffing machine company that was doing really well until the rise of the Tempur-Pedic pillow. My dad had a breakdown and fled to Turks or Caicos. We're still not sure which one. That part wasn't in the book.
You can't just keep buying things willy-nilly, honey.
Whatever you say, Mom. I have to buy clothes willy-nilly. It's like my thing.
Okay, let's see. Here we go. Harriet, cried Emma. Are you speaking with Mr. Knightley? To be sure I am. I never could have an idea of anybody else. And Harriet likes Knightley. Great.
Ugh, Holly, right on cue.
Hey!
Hey!
Okay, so I was thinking, and I was like, oh, maybe I like Nick.
Were you?
And I realized after a little while, stay with me here, I actually want to be with Marty. And I know, he's not the brightest or whatever, but he...
No. Marty's been getting better. I think you should just go for it.
Really? Okay, awesome. I gotta go. Mwah.
Bye.
And there it is. Harriet and Martin get together, and that means, yes, okay. Emma gets Knightley, which means I'm gonna get Nick. Oh my god. Okay, calm down, Emily. Wait. He's gonna call. Okay, so he hasn't called. Maybe this was all a lie? No. Just busy yourself, Emily. Find something to do, and he'll call at some point. Oh, I could read another book. Mansfield Park. Oh, perfect. It's Jane Austen. You know, she's really grown on me lately. The little girl performed her long journey in safety, and at Northampton was met by Miss Norris.
Can you come here for a minute? Coming! What's up? Yeah, so remember when I said we were strapped for cash?
Yeah?
We're running low, really low.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna have to send you to Aunt Nora's in New Hampshire while I look for a job.
Did you say Aunt Nora's in New Hampshire?
Yeah.
Mrs. Knightley, so lovely to see you. Mrs. Darcy, I trust your family's in good health.
Yes, they are in excellent health, thank you. And your family, are they in good health?
Oh, they're in excellent health. We're just waiting on Mrs. Ferris.
Yes, and her sister, Mrs. Marion Brandon, will be joining our group for the first time. This should make for a splendid book club.
Hello, ladies. I trust your families are in good health.
Yes, thank you.
Hello! It is so lovely to meet you all. Are your families in good health?
Very much.
Quite.
Yes. Now that we are all gathered, I am riveted to discuss my book choice. But first, I'm delighted to welcome Mrs. Brandon to our group. Why don't we do a quick round of introductions? Mrs. Knightley, would you go first?
Certainly. I'm Emma Knightley. I live at Hartfield. I love matchmaking, and I'm very devoted to my charity work.
That's right. How is dear Harriet?
Wonderful! I'm Elizabeth Darcy, and I live at Pemberley. I enjoy reading and dancing, even if one's partner is barely tolerable. Mrs. Brandon, since you're already acquainted with your sister, why don't you go next?
Hello, I'm Marianne Brandon. I live at Delaford, and I love Shakespeare sonnets, 116 to be exact, and playing the pianoforte for my wonderful husband.
Splendid! Now that we are all well acquainted, let us dive into the book the way my husband dives into our local pond. First, I must say, I loved it. Thoughts?
It was a book. And there are so many to choose from in the world. It's very telling that you chose this book.
I agree with Mrs. Knightley. It certainly was very unique.
Goodness me, am I the only one who found this book positively dreadful?
Marianne, Mrs. Darcy thought long and hard about what book she wanted us to read.
Yes, I know, dear sister, but the book is incomplete. It's only 11 chapters and then the story simply ends.
Oh, Mrs. Brandon, I deliberately chose a book that was published posthumously because I thought it would spark a lively discussion, such as this one.
Well, dear, if you are up for honesty, then I too quite dislike this book. I mean, an incomplete love story isn't one worth telling.
My dear Emma, I simply must disagree with you. A romance does not need to have a happy ending. We are now free to discuss what could have been.
I can't imagine if my love story would have ended early. Who would I have ended up with? I would have been with the awful Mr. Frank Churchill.
And I'd have married the deceitful Mr. Willoughby.
And I would have had no prospects at all.
Oh. Ladies, you are all exaggerating. Would your lives be so awful with those gentlemen?
Good afternoon, ladies. I trust your families are in good health.
Thank you.
Indeed, yes. Mr. Collins, well, what an unexpected surprise. What brings you here?
Well, I was thrilled to receive your invitation to book club, Mrs. Darcy. You have fine calligraphy, might I say so?
Oh, yes, my invitation to Mrs. Collins.
I do apologise for being late, but I can certainly dive right into discussion. I was most impressed with this page right...
I do apologize for the interruption. Oh, fine, I admit it. Open-ended love stories do not make for a happy ending.
Well, we're glad you've come around to our way of thinking. Maybe Mrs. Brandon can choose next month's book.
I think that's a fine idea. I look forward to your book choice, Mrs. Brandon.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Darcy. Remind me, what is the name of this book?
Sanditon.
Oh.
Hello. So I'll give me a moment here while I turn back on chat.
If you work in a team,
sorry.
You should be using Monday.com.
Sorry about that. Okay. And Erica will now introduce, okay, chat is back on, so please enter your questions. And Erica is going to introduce us to all of these wonderful young filmmakers. Take it over, Erica.
Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed the films. What I'm going to do is introduce all of the winners in order of first to third of over 20 and under 20. So the film that you just saw was created by Jillian Davis and Yolanda Rodriguez, called Jane Austen Virtual Book Club. And I thought, Jillian and Yolanda, if you could unmute yourself and say hi to everybody, we would love to hear from you.
Hello.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Congratulations. All right, and so first place in the under 20 category, we have Thomas Fitzgerald for Handsome, Clever, and Rich. Thomas, can you give us a shout out?
Hi, everybody. Very excited to be here.
Excellent, thanks for coming. All right, and in second place for the over 20 category, we have Lydia Smith for A Letter to Jane. Lydia, are you here with us?
Hi, yes, I am. Thank you for having me here.
Congratulations. And second place for the under 20 category is Ellie Cagle for A Certain Step Towards Falling in Love. Ellie, can you say hi?
Hi, everybody.
Yay, thanks for coming. All right, and in third place, in third place in the over 20 category, we have Courtney Birnbaum for Moreland and Mishaps. Courtney, are you here?
Yes, thank you. So happy to be here.
Thanks, we're so happy you entered our contest. Excellent. And then finally, our third place in the under 20 category is Sajween Khan. And I hope I'm saying your name right, Sajween, and for her wonderful film, Letters to Cassandra. Please say hi to us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hey. We recognize that set. Great, okay, well, I think we're just gonna I think we all are have burning questions about these wonderful pieces. And we're really happy also to have a few of our judges with us. So anyone who has any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat. But I can certainly start things off and wanted to ask the judges a few things. And judges, if you're out there, just unmute yourself if you have something to say. I was kind of curious as far as how your evaluations differ for short films like these, as opposed to looking at full-length feature films. I mean, what different things do you look for? Is it harder or easier to judge these shorter films?
Well, this is Kenny Turan. My name is misspelled on the on my Zoom ID. I think the criteria are identical. You want a film that really the bottom line is you want a film that involves you. It may be harder. Sometimes it's like, is it harder to write a short story than a novel? Sometimes it's harder to compress into a short film. But my criteria, what I'm looking for in a film, don't change. I want to be involved. I want to be entertained. I want to be something, thought-provoking, something to contend with. And it doesn't change no matter what the length of the film.
Okay. Is there anything challenging, and actually judges or winners, you can chime in here, in creating a compelling film around Jane Austen or around her works in under 5 minutes? Do you find yourself grappling with what else can I say, or wow, I don't have enough time? How do you handle the time constraints in telling a compelling story?
I can talk a little bit. Since ours was animated, our main time constraint was just that it was a 2-person crew. This is my husband, Christopher, who's my animator. And so I thought it was very enjoyable to spend so much time working on a Jane Austen project, because that's something we're both fans of. And so to have to spend long hours working, we actually had to cut quite a bit of our story just based on the constraint of only having 2 people working on the project. So if we had infinite time and infinite wrist muscles, we would definitely want to add more to the story. And so I think that it's so interesting how Jane Austen has so few novels overall compared to many others who lived longer and had longer time to write. But I feel like there's always inspiration there, and a new story. And I loved seeing all the other filmmakers and how they interpreted it, and it all rang very true to her work.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Again, back to the judges. I wonder if you can look back on judging all of the entries and telling us if there were any unexpected elements, basing this on maybe the age groups of the filmmakers, the time constraint, the fact that these are non-professionals versus professionals. Were there any snippets in these films that stood out to you as a wow, I'm impressed, or wow, maybe the other going the other way? You could share with us your thoughts on that.
Am I the only judge here? I mean, I'm happy to answer, but I'd like the other judges to chime in if they're here.
I could share a little bit. I think for me, it was just really exciting to see the different styles. We had things from very sort of straightforward narrative pieces to things that were more abstract, to things that were more direct lifts or direct homages to the plots themselves, to using the elements of Austen's writing to create something totally new. So I just had fun seeing the wide range of creativity that this one inspiration can lead to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I want to put a shout out to the Jane Austen Virtual Book Club, because which is one of the winners, because I thought that was just right from the get-go. It's a great conception. It's a great idea to have a Zoom book club of Austen characters. And as soon as it started and I realized what they were doing, the idea itself, even before I could see how well the execution worked out, the idea itself was very compelling for me.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. I think the element of surprise, of twists, they're all, obviously movies live and die by plot twists and unexpected happenings. And I think there were a few elements in these films that I think maybe got all of us, and Ken touched on one of the great ones in the Jane Austen Virtual Book Club. Judges or winners, any other
You just went on mute, Erica. But we do have a question from the audience for Jillian and Yolanda, since we're talking about their film. They are asked by Paul, could you talk about the writing process, how collaborative it was, and how you went back and forth with the project?
Sure. Well, we're pretty used to collaborating with each other remotely, especially last year because we have a podcast together. So it was kind of just a matter of, talking about like what the prompt meant to us and, you know, what we wanted to make and what we could realistically film, and just sort of going back and forth, like writing together.
Yeah, pretty much once we found out the contest was open to under 30, we started brainstorming what ideas we could do and participate in the contest. And we landed on virtual book club because it just felt like not only did it speak to the times we're in, but also it made it COVID safe friendly to film as well. But yes, we went back and forth. We did a couple drafts, and it was just an overall really fun process to work on.
And we have a question from Kelowna to everyone, all the filmmakers, about were they fans of Jane Austen before they made these films, and what drew them to the contest?
This is about the Jane Austen fan. This is kind of embarrassing for me to say, but I actually had never read a Jane Austen book before this competition. I loved the ideas of the romance and all of that. And my film teacher actually pushed me to do this competition because I wanted to, you know, dip my toes into directing. And once I started brainstorming, I like fell in love with Jane Austen, and I own all of the books now, and I have a signed Pride and Prejudice poster. So definitely through this competition, I just like opened my like world into this awesome just community.
That's fantastic.
Love that.
I got into Jane Austen this summer when they put Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 Keira Knightley version, on Netflix, and I watched it and it was just so dreamy. And I remember like going back to like YouTube trailers and reading all the analysis of everyone of how like Mr. Darcy in that one scene where his bus is following her, I was just so entranced. The word I kept thinking about was dreamy. And at the same time, I had all these hobbies that kind of coincided with the whole Regency era period piece thing. Like I gotten into pen paling and embroidery, and I just felt natural. It was so great.
Thomas, how about you? Are you here?
Yeah, I kind of have, I think, a similar situation. I had seen, probably one of my favorite plays that I've ever seen was of Pride and Prejudice. It was kind of like gender bending. It was really fun. And I didn't really know, it was a couple of years ago, and I didn't know much about Jane Austen. And it kind of really struck me. And then I also watched another, like a high school version of it. And something about like Elizabeth Bennet and just kind of, I don't know, it's like a really strong story. And so I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting. And then actually earlier this year, I had watched the newer Emma movie with, I think it's August Wilde's movie. I think that's the name of director. And I thought that was just like really beautiful. And then I had not watched Clueless actually until a couple days before I kind of like wanted to write the movie, the short. And so I think this has kind of been like this is sort of my pathway into liking her. So I think it's really unique and interesting that in like today's modern day world, we like all of the three people, the youngest people that submit just said like we got to know her like through movies, which is just kind of, I think, really significant, and come to love her through that angle. And I think that's really special. It's very significant about something about the changing of the times, I guess.
Fantastic. Great. Anybody else want to share, answer that question?
Sure.
Or if you came into film or the Jane Austen angle? Go ahead.
Yeah, so being in the over 20 category, it's been a while since I met Jane Austen, but I think film is the entryway into a lot of fans, because as fun as it is to read, I could not understand what was happening in books until I watched the movie with it. Sense and Sensibility is what I'm thinking of, although I'd read Pride and Prejudice previously. And Persuasion was actually my introduction because of college, but so I saw someone talking about Persuasion and I find it very inspiring, but didn't quite fit the animation idea I had. So my thesis project in grad school was actually what the short was based on. We did not have time to make a full pilot episode of an animated series, but I found Catherine Morland from Northanger Abbey to be such an interesting character, and one of the characters that's described as a younger heroine, or I guess pre-heroine, and she's such a mess and so relatable, and she gets into problems, she steals flowers from gardens, she loves baseball and hates brushing her hair. And I found that thinking on, especially with connecting to what everyone else has been saying so far for filmmakers, how watching something on screen can then inspire you to read. That's where we came up with our concept of a girl in the modern age that is Catherine Morland, with modern problems, but also her old habits of getting into problems. And so she, what we had to cut from this short was her dancing and trampling her mom's garden in the front yard before she runs into Henry. And I just love the characters, and I love every version of them. And so I just love seeing all the different projects that are inspired by Jane Austen, because I think that if someone feels like Jane Austen is not for them, they haven't found the right either genre or retelling, or maybe they haven't understood the words yet. But I think that everyone can like Jane Austen if we meet them where they are.
And someone had a question about the style of animation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My husband might be better for that, but it's hand-drawn animation. We used tablets and computers. I colored quite a bit of my frames with a mouse, which I don't recommend. It's much better to use a tablet for that. But he's a storyboard artist, and so he does commercials usually, but I dragged him into what he really loves, which is cartoons. And so he did all the storyboards for my grad school project. And then I was like, okay, can we pare this down into a short film? And so he was really crucial there on understanding the visual parts of this story in particular, and how to make the film come to life in our limited time to get this ready for your contest. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of focus on appeal. You want to make them relatable and enjoyable characters. And this is hand drawn. So like I had to, sometimes we would repeat a frame here or there to make it breathe. One of the problems of animation is that if you're drawing it, sometimes the characters can look like robots just going from this to this to this to this, each different thing. And so as you start timing it out, after I've done a bunch of the drawings, we added more pauses and things like that to make it feel like they're alive. But yeah, it was all hand drawn, but on a digital tablet. And we had some help with our character designs and stuff like that. But overall, it was the two of us just drawing. She did so much of the coloring and the backgrounds too, because I couldn't do it all in the time constraints we had. So, but yeah, that's
I'll say that the animation is stepped. Is that what it'd be
it's
called?
A little stepped, yeah. It's
we would like it to be smoother, but again, two people, we just could not draw all the frames by hand in the time frame we had. We had moved to California before this, so between unpacking and our day jobs, it was not.
Ideally, it would have a few more drawings in there to smooth out the movement and make it flow a little bit better. And you can see that it's a little bit choppy.
If you look at the cameo with Jane Austen in the swirl, you're going to see a lot more animation there than in other frames, because we were able to spend the time on that. We thought that was very important.
Great, thank you. So I want to hear from Lydia. I think you're here to talk about the cinematography, and if people are interested in hearing about that.
Yes, actually, the person to be best to talk about that is David, my co-director, but he was unable to be here today. But the entire film was shot on a drone. So that was our goal, as we wanted to do that. That was like the goal. We did that. The only shot that was not done on the drone was the last shot on the horse that was used with a camera. But yes, it was really difficult. The camera is actually it's a very good drone. So the camera was actually surprisingly very steady. when we were at the beach. There were very high winds that day, and so you can see it a little bit in the opening scene, but we were quite pleased with it, and it's really good quality. We were able to get the shots exactly how we wanted it, so we were very pleased with it.
Great. And several people had questions for all the filmmakers about the writing process. We have a variety of questions. Who would like to take that?
So one of the things that I learned about making a short film is the importance of storytelling. And I had to look up like Dan Harmon's story wheel, which is basically like the hero's journey about how a character needs an objective. They have an obstacle they need to overcome, and I learned about that. I also got into storyboarding, drawing out it from frame to frame to see how it flows and watching transitions and stuff. So in terms of writing, I kind of was just inspired by like a rainy day. It just so happened to be a rainy day, and I just wanted to take advantage of that, and that's what I did.
Who else would like to talk about that? I think a couple of people asked us specifically about Jillian and Yolanda about how the back and forth went.
Yeah, I think the main element for us was what book are they reading? And that's really what drew the story through of talking about unfinished love stories. And I think once we locked that in, then we were able to craft the story around that and what each character's opinion was on that too. We also toyed with the idea of who is the cameo of who interrupts the Zoom call. So we had Collins there as the one who was interrupting. We thought about Darcy, but we weren't sure how it was going to fit in. We tried to make both fit in, but with 5 minutes, we decided the Collins one was stronger. But I'll let Jillian answer. Anything else?
Yeah, and I guess the only thing that I was thinking about is I remember something that we were really thinking, like what kind of freedom we gave ourselves was sort of like it was, one of the, not the only adaptation, but that we were focusing on where the characters, like their whole books, their whole stories as we know them had taken place. So like we kind of imagined this like post Jane Austen marriage MCU or whatever it is, the universe where they'd kind of already settled down, and like how would they keep in touch and friends, and what would they talk about now that they're sort of the love story journey as we know it was sort of over.
Anyone else?
I can add to that. I think I wrote it very quickly, and it was like far too long. And I brought it to the actress who's that was in it, Sadie. Sadie, if you're here, hello. I think she is. And I said, what do we think? What do we need to cut out? Because there were, basically, we had both kind of like watched Clueless outside on this nice projector thing, and we were like, that's so much fun. Like we kind of understand how you can adapt things and make them kind of more accessible to people of like different generations, because obviously the stories are so universal that like the themes are and the characters and their actions are what's really important. And so it was probably twice as long as the one that as the final product, I guess. And then we kind of thought like, what are the maybe less particularly important parts, because luckily we had the sort of structure of what was actually going to happen. And then we also took out a couple other parts that were maybe just kind of like setting up her character. Like there's this weird part where she had like a fan and she was like, anyway. So we took out a couple of the superfluous parts and just wanted to include like the raw skeleton of it, because you can't really tell the story of a full novel in 5 minutes. So we took out all of the non-essentials basically, and we were left with what we needed, which I think at the end of the day is like, you kind of want to cut it down as much as you can, because I think too much is going to make it, flowery, I guess.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about my writing process for my short film. So the writing process for mine actually took about a month. Um, it was October, and this was before the deadline got extended, so I thought I missed it. And when I figured out it was extended, I had kind of given up, and then I decided to give it another try. So it took me about a month to figure out like what I wanted to do. I had about 3 other ideas before I landed on the prom night sort of thing, and it was really hard to pick and choose what aspects of it I wanted to put in, because in my film I didn't include the sisters, I didn't include some other characters that were supposed to be there, so I had to take the scene that I really resonated with and then pick and choose. So that was really difficult, but it also it helped me focus on what I wanted to tell. So at the end, I'm very happy that, even though I had to get rid of some elements, I'm happy with my final product. So
Great. Thank you. There's a question from Abigail for all the winners. Eric, do you have a question? Okay. This is from Abigail Steckler. How do you balance creating a Jane Austen aesthetic tone within the limitations of a modern world? She says she thought all of you captured beautifully the tone of Austen. In the writing and shooting, how did you balance the modern with the old?
For me, it's definitely making sure that the characters shine. If the character is true, it's going to be applicable in modern, and it's going to be applicable to the original. So just really character-driven stories, putting them in situations, or just bringing elements. I also really liked how so many of the films did reference some of the old, and I think that I'm really interested in hearing what everyone else thinks as well. But for me, it's the characters.
Okay, anybody else?
Well, for our short film specifically, this is Abby, who was our fearless director and editor on this, and she and all of our actors were phenomenal. But we kind of wanted to have a little bit of fun with like blending, we wanted the characters to be period, and we wanted it to still be, back in the 1800s, but we still kind of wanted that like virtual element to help keep things sort of like distant and just sort of like keep the frames that we had. And so I mean, for us, it was just sort of like fun to just sort of like blend these things.
I think I just kind of wanted to, I thought about what Emma would be like if she was, I guess, born and was like in my generation. And it made sense to me. She's like a really sociable person, and she kind of is, she knows what's going on. She's kind of in everybody's business. It made a lot of sense to me that she would have, that she would be kind of always texting people, and people were always FaceTiming her. And because I think that that's, especially in a very modern world with COVID-19, I think that's kind of really a central theme, is the social media aspect of it all. And so I think that was something that was really important to take into account. And then also, kind of pulling from other adaptations and other more modern media that aren't even like Jane Austen related, that I thought would kind of help put it in context. So there are kind of like little bits of things that are stolen from like movies or TV shows, and like concepts that I like, that I think have a really modern connotation. And if you kind of just keep that structure, because for me, I guess it was kind of easy to be like, well, this is Emma, and I'm not going to change the plot of Emma because the entire thing is the plot of Emma. So yeah, I think just really kind of putting it, it's kind of like putting it through the filter of 2020, and keeping everything that you need to, and changing the little bits and pieces of it so that a whole new group of people can kind of empathize with it.
Lydia, on the same question of the balancing old and new, you really did that on your film as well. You have the costumes, but you also were talking from a, a perspective of centuries later. Can you talk a little bit about this question?
Yeah, I believe that we really truly captured exactly what we wanted to capture. Our goal was to create a film that anyone could appeal to, anyone could relate to. They could put themselves in the spot of the writer of the letter, because Jane affects us all centuries later. We all are impacted by her, whether we know it or not. And it was really exciting to interview different people from different age groups and different backgrounds, and ask them, if you could tell Jane anything, what would you tell her? What would you thank her for? What would you want to say to her? How has she impacted your life? And putting that all together into something that we can all relate to. And with the whole modern setting, I wanted to be as true to her and her works as possible. And since I didn't have the capabilities of the beautiful period dramas, the adaptations, I wanted to make sure that anything we did would be as respectful as possible. I didn't want to have any characters talking. I didn't want to show any faces with or without makeup, and so that's why we did the filming how we did, where you couldn't see anyone's faces really directly on you. No one talked. We had one voice that was supposed to speak for everyone. And I think we really were able to do that. And of course, modern, staying as far away as possible from the characters and only coming in a little bit was how we were able to capture them without revealing the time, even though we all know what time it's being filmed in. But I think we were able to do that. And the drone obviously helped us, because you can get close, but not too close. And so we always had that limitation.
Fantastic. We have a question for our judges. I think Kenny might have left, but Adria, if you could answer, what do you think the winning filmmakers really got right? What impressed you the most?
I think this is a great question. One is always the definite challenge of production and just production value, and that is a hard thing to achieve. So I also do want to say congratulations to everyone who made anything as an independent filmmaker. It's hard to do. So that's part of it, is production value. It eases the enjoyment of a story. I think also having very strong, very clear points of view. And there's a lot of that subjective stuff of being particularly engaging in a way that just that resonated with myself the most, but that whenever you're making art, there are some things that just resonate with some audiences, some things that resonate with other audiences differently. Just clarity. I think the clarity of story, production values, it's that strong point of view. And getting a full narrative. For me, it was also getting a full narrative into that space, and in short form, that's hard to do. So it was exciting to see.
And do you have any advice for anyone who's watching who might be considering entering this year?
Oh my gosh. Yes, do it and try and have fun, and let the experience be a fun learning experience. If it's something that, if thinking about making one of these films brings you joy and makes you excited, I think you should definitely do it regardless of outcome. It's an excellent opportunity to dive into something that you love, to have fun being creative, and to learn a ton. Every time I make something or I'm on a project, I learn so much. And I think people should go for it. And the community is obviously incredible and supportive. So it's a great space to be in. So I say go for it. Just try it. Get it out there. Have a good time.
And thank you for judging. We're really so grateful. Can you tell us, let's see, we have a few more questions. And if I missed a question that you asked many minutes ago, please raise your hand or enter it again, because we're trying to make sure we don't miss anything. I know someone asked a question about persuasion and whether that's harder to bring to the modern era than others. Anybody want to speak to that, or what specifically, how did you choose your theme? In other words, did you have a hard time deciding which Austin book to bring to film, or elements of? That's a very rambling question.
Yeah, I definitely think I had some trouble figuring out what I wanted to do, especially as a newbie into the Austen world. So originally I was gonna go with Emma. I was gonna take that sort of plot, but then I was like, well, I'm a newbie. I probably need to start with the basics. And if you ask anyone who, doesn't really know about Jane Austen, they'll probably say Pride and Prejudice. So I decided to stick with that as a newbie. And thankfully, as I went on with the editing process, I read more of the books and I watched more of the movies. So I got something out of it. But definitely, I just wanted to stick with something I was a little bit more comfortable with. Because at the time, I didn't have a lot of time to delve into the different stories and figure out, oh, I want this or this or this. So.
And do you have a favorite novel now of Austen's?
Pride and Prejudice always has my heart. It always it's just so good.
Anybody else? What's your favorite? Of those of you who've read more than one.
Persuasion is my favorite. Still looking for a good story. I think it's a little bit more difficult to adapt to a visual medium because so much of it takes place in Anne's head. So I would love to see any adaptation ideas people have for that.
Who else? Thomas, I want to know if you have read Mansfield Park. Did you have a Mrs. Norris reference at the end?
So this is actually funny. I have not read Mansfield Park. As I was reading Emma, I was kind of like, oh, how am I gonna end this thing? Because I don't know, I knew that I didn't want it to just be kind of like, oh, well, and then it ends. And then she's like, oh, yay, and I am in love. Because, I mean, while that is how Emma wonderfully ends, I didn't want it to just be a remake of it. I wanted it to kind of have a little something fun twist at the ending. So then what I did is I just was talking to the actress in it, and we were like, how should we end this? I don't know. Let's look up Jane Austen novels. Let's look up when maybe somebody goes somewhere, maybe it continues into a new one. So then we started searching, we had the plot of Emma, and then we were like, well, maybe we should look at maybe in the beginning of something else, a character has to go somewhere. So then we looked up and we researched all the other plots of them. So I guess that's a pretty good indication of how we came to understand and know Jane Austen through this project. And it was kind of really, really quickly. And so we were searching through and we found Mansfield Park, and I was looking through and I thought, oh, well, wonderful. At the beginning, she goes to this place. She has to go there. And then I kind of thought, oh, well, now we have to establish that it's not just the plot of Emma. There is some sort of beneath all of her kind of assumptions that they're rich, and her buying the nice outfit from the kind of shishi boho place. I have to introduce this other theme to kind of get to that end point. And that was when the mom comes in and, she says, we're not as wealthy as you think we are. We're going to hit hard times. And so that I kind of had to place that in the middle so that it wasn't just at the end, oh, well, you got to leave. So I think the kind of integration of that was really important. And then obviously there's a lot awaiting her at Mansfield Park. So I thought it was kind of a fun, almost sort of tragic ending, that it's, oh, she's trapped in this loop and she's going to have an interesting time.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thomas, when you read Mansfield Park, you're going to see just how tragic that is.
Sajween, can you tell us what inspired you to write about or to make your film about the letters to Cassandra?
So over the course of the pandemic, obviously, we weren't able to see our friends in person as much, which kind of inspired me to connect with people in other ways. I really love the idea of pen paling, the wax seals, the brown envelopes, connecting with people across the globe. And so I found like a letter writing contest hosted by Jane Austen's house that year, and it was talking about the simplicities of life and how Jane Austen's letters to her sister talked about everyday things. Like it wasn't these profound things. It was just like what was happening around her, and that really inspired to, especially since, again, because of the pandemic, I couldn't have any other actors or crew with me. Just to focus on something simple, and that's what I did or tried to do.
Can you all talk about casting? Because I know maybe Ellie, you had quite a large cast in your film. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how did you film that in the pandemic?
Yeah, so the casting process, the school that I filmed it at is a brand new school where I'm at. I transferred there because my film teacher transferred, and I want to do film as a career, and I needed her as my, teacher. And so I didn't know anybody at the school. And I contacted the theater teacher and I asked if I could sit in on the musical auditions for the fall and spring musical, and just to write down names of people that I really liked, that I felt like fit the vibe. And it was really awkward because I would DM them and they would have no idea who I was. And I was just like, do you want to come act for me? But after sharing some DMs and some conversations at school, they were all really nice. And they actually had never acted for film before. And I was like, well, good, because I've never directed for film before. So we're going to be in this together. And as for filming during a pandemic, my assistant director, Kason, and I, about 3 weeks before our set date, we came up with this plan of every 30 minutes, everyone has to get hand sanitizer. Your temperature is going to be checked whenever you enter and whenever you exit. Everybody has to wear masks, and before I called action, they would take off their masks. So we really tried to keep it as safe as possible. And we made sure that during our breaks, only certain people would be able to eat with other people. And thankfully, no one got sick afterwards. So I'm actually kind of proud of myself for the, we call it our pandemic plan that we did, because I really wanted everybody to be safe, because I was willing to shut down production like at the drop of a hat if something wasn't right. So mainly my big thing was health and safety. And I'm so thankful to this day that nobody got sick, because I would not be able to sleep at night if someone had gotten sick from my set. But it also helped my other film friends come up with their pandemic filming plans.
Oh, that's great. Speaking of the pandemic, obviously the Jane Austen Virtual Book Club really speaks to what we've all gone through in 2020 and beyond. So I don't know if you guys want to talk a little bit about your process. So you filmed that outside. It looks like everybody's outside, and you put together a wonderful cast. Can you talk a little bit about the casting process too?
Yeah, so for casting, we reached out to friends and friends and friends to put it together, and we wanted to make sure it was a diverse cast and making sure we had representation in there. And for filming wise, we basically wanted to just do it safely as well. I think, Ellie, that's great that you created a plan and created a plan for others. That's awesome. But we just had one person in at a time and filmed it within about 30 minutes or so. But 3 of the actors were just in Jillian's apartment, and we just shifted the camera 90 degrees to make it seem like different places. 2 of them were outside, which we did on the weekend at a park, and had to pause every time kids were playing. So in case you hear kids in the background, that's what that was. But yeah, we just had a lot of fun with it. I'll let Jillian add in anything else.
An especially fun part of filming this, because originally we wanted to film all of our actors outside just because of COVID. We also kind of had a plan where everyone was wearing masks except our actors. We were good at keeping our distance. Luckily, we were able to film like 1 actor at a time, so no one had to be in the room who didn't need to be. However, we filmed this in September September when there were wildfires raging across Southern California, which is where we live. Both Yolanda and I are in the greater LA area. And so filming outdoors became very dangerous as well. And so we had an original plan where it was going to be one day, an hour block for everybody, and they would just come in one right after the other. And we had to change that considerably. And we were able to film a couple of people indoors. And then we had to wait a couple of weeks more for the outdoor shots because we needed the smoke to clear, and we ended up filming a lot further west than we had originally planned because there was still that lingering smog.
Yeah, that was just, seems like ages ago, but yeah, that was pretty intense. If you were filming in September, it's crazy. We have a question. Any intention of Jane Austen film projects further in your careers for any of you?
Yes, absolutely. We would love to do that. If anyone's interested in seeing some of my ideas for the full project, I'd be happy to share a link. I guess I can drop that in the chat.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So among the rest of you, any aspiring filmmakers, or tell us what your plans are for next.
David's not here, but I'll speak for him. He is studying film in college. I did study film when I was in college, so it was exciting to bring that back. And we've been wanting to collaborate for a while. Both of our moms are very big Jane Austen fans and instilled that in both of us at a young age. We've been watching the movies, reading the books since we were very small. I'm a lot older, so it's been a lot longer for me, but I'm really proud of David. He's gonna do really well in film school, and he has a lot of projects that he is looking forward to. And I hope that in any way I can help, just because it's exciting to work on it again. I don't plan on doing it as a career, but I always enjoy, I plan on doing it as much as I can for fun and, you know, as a creative outlet. And our next film project that we're actually working on is going to be set in 1830s California. So it's going to be a little bit different, but we're looking forward to it. And this has definitely helped us, you know, as creative partners, coming together and finding like how we work. And I think we did a really good job together. And so we're looking forward to hashing out all the ideas that we have in both of our heads and putting them together. So we're really looking forward to collaborating further in the future. This has been a great experience for both of us.
Can you talk a little bit about the casting for your film, Lydia?
Oh, well, I've moved back home, you know, in the last couple of years. And so all the people I knew growing up and they're my age really aren't around anymore in my hometown. But it was great. Dave and I have grown up as brother and sister. Our families are super close. And so we gathered together our friends, and it happened to be pretty much all the high schoolers that Dave and my younger brother know. And so I got to work with a bunch of young creatives, which was really awesome. And they're great kids. And they worked really hard. And I did film in college, and I honestly can't say that I've seen harder working kids for a short film and more dedicated, which was really awesome. And having worked with college kids on films, it was a big difference, and they were really passionate and hardworking. I'm really proud of them. They made me really proud. So it was great. I asked anyone that wanted to be involved if they would love to be involved, and I had willing participants. So it was great.
That's fantastic. We have one of our prior winners here with us. Ellen Carden is here. Ellen, can you unmute yourself and say hello?
Hi.
So Ellen was the creator of Mrs. Bennett's Plan from 2018, which screened at the Sony Picture Studios. Ellen, tell us what you've been up to.
Well, I ended up going to graduate school in England. That was cool. I'm finishing up my master's in museum studies. I went to University of London. And so since I did that film project, I've just been, you know, doing some other creative things. I'm planning on writing my own Regency novel. We'll see how that goes. And you know, still just enjoying Jane Austen.
Fantastic. Does anyone have a question for Ellen? And then we're going to show the trailer for the 2021 contest in just a moment. So any final questions? Everybody start adding them to the chat as I get ready to share our trailer. Go ahead and start planning share. Seconds. Oops. Bear with me here for a second. And feel free to add chat questions while we're showing this new film. Okay.
It would be such a waste of this tux if I didn't dance in it. Right, Elizabeth?
It's Liz, and I suppose you're right, Will.
There was something about it that just captured my imagination.
Goodness me, am I the only one who found this book positively dreadful?
It was so good. It was so good that I forgot that it was hard.
Sorry. Okay. Okay. So, any final questions? Anybody want to raise their hand? Anything? Any of the winners who have any, or Adrienne, anything you'd like to share before we go?
Just saying congratulations and thank you to everyone for sharing your work with us. It's awesome to be involved in other people's creativity. So thanks for sharing yourselves with us.
Adrienne, what do you have coming up? I'm sure everyone would love to hear what you're doing next.
I am currently working on a bunch of things that are all under NDA, but I'm working on several animated shows for Disney and Mattel and DreamWorks, and those, since they're animated, they take a long time, so they'll be out like the end of this year, early next year. That's what's taking up most of my time right now.
Thanks. Thank you. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. It's just been a pleasure to share your wonderful films with the world, and they'll be on YouTube. Everybody who registered for the meeting will get an email with all the links so you can watch them live. They'll go live this afternoon, go from private to public, and you can help spread the word. And please do help us spread the word for the 2021 Young Filmmakers Contest. The deadline is October 1st, and so a little bit earlier this year, but we're starting a little bit earlier. We want to just tell any teacher, professor, young person you know, anyone who loves Austin, who doesn't know Austin yet, but should know about Austin. It's a great way to combine your creativity with your wonderful storytelling with Austin and introduce Austin to new generations and new diverse audiences, because that's really our goal at JASNA, is to spread the word of her genius and her life and works. And you make it so, it makes such a difference to have these young films to reach new audiences. So thank you all so much. Thanks for coming today. Thanks to the filmmakers, thanks to the judges, and thanks to Erica. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you. I second all that. And I just want to say that the video and visual representation of Jane Austen is in all of your hands and all of our hands. It's going to only become more and more important to her legacy for generations to come. And this is where it all starts. So thank you to all the winners. We are just overwhelmed with what you did.
Oh, we do have one person with a hand up. Barbara, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, I just wanted to say that I'm so happy to see all you young people here because we're so used to seeing no anybody but the people over 60 in our meetings, or sometimes even older. And it means that Jane will go on. And we think it's really important that Jane does go on. She is, according to many experts, next to Shakespeare, the most important novelist ever. And maybe you should take that in a little bit. And do read Mansfield Park, whoever didn't read it, and the rest of them. Persuasion is my favorite because it's sort of an autumnal story and I'm in my 70s. But yes, thank you very much. It's lovely to see all these young faces and to know that there's interest in Jane Austen by young people who haven't been assigned it in high school and made to read it.
Thank you, Barbara. And thank you again, everyone, for coming today. We're again so grateful. Spread the word about the new contest. Share the links to all the films, including Ellen Carter's film from 2018. We'll include that link as well. If you haven't seen that, it's hilarious. So thank you again, everyone. What a wonderful day. We really appreciate it. Okay, take care. Bye, everybody.